Why then did it take me finding documents for the public to be made aware that 3M was violating federal law for 10 years by releasing toxic chemicals into the Tennessee River with ADEM's approval? This whole big stack, this shows that year after year, 3M and Decatur reported to the state of Alabama that it was releasing toxic chemicals into the Tennessee River, and it appears to have gone unnoticed by those in power. That's until we discovered the illegal chemical releases and told you about it. Reports submitted to the Alabama Department of Environmental Management indicate 3M reported discharging toxic chemical FBSA into the Tennessee River since at least 2014. FBSA is a short-chain PFAS chemical. It is used to make products like Scotchgard and Teflon.
We've always had a lot of questions regarding short-chain PFAS alternatives.
Tennessee Riverkeeper founder David Whiteside knows 3M and its chemicals well. His nonprofit group is currently in a legal battle with the chemical manufacturing giant to clean up similar types of chemicals it released in the Tennessee River.
Ultimately, resolving these complicated pollution problems, one of the best things we can do is shine a spotlight on there. But we also need the state regulatory agencies to shine that spotlight too. But unfortunately, they seem to be more interested in keeping this problem in the dark than to educate the public about what's going on.
Are you concerned that it took our reporting to notify the public about it?
Yes, I am concerned about that.
Alabama's junior Senator Doug Jones is calling on environmental regulators to take action and get to the bottom of the illegal releases.
It shouldn't take the media. This needs to be something that everybody needs to make sure that they're aware of, and that ADEM and EPA need to get on this and make sure that water is safe.
And environmentalists hope this revelation brings new urgency for regulators to stand up to companies who break the rules.
It comes down to a simple lesson that we all should have learned in kindergarten, and that is, if you make a mess in your room, you got to clean it up. And unfortunately, 3M either never learned that lesson or they've forgotten it, and they've made a mess of their room in Decatur, Alabama, and we expect them to fully clean it up.
The EPA says it has an open investigation into the matter and is unable to comment further at this time. The people of Lawrence County asked us to find answers after dangerous levels of manufacturing chemicals were found in their drinking water. Our quest to find those answers started with the local water authority. It took us to Montgomery, and now we find ourselves here, nearly 1,000 miles away in the state of Minnesota. When Minnesota found out it had toxic chemicals in their drinking water, they had two problems. First, they didn't know what they were dealing with. And second, they knew exactly who they were dealing with. The chemicals were dumped by one of Minnesota's largest employers, 3M. Minnesota is the birthplace of 3M. Almost everyone up here is either employed by the chemical manufacturing giant or is related to someone who works there. Even with 3M's shadow looming, the state of Minnesota went to work.
A big problem for the local communities was the concern that here's one of the big employers in our area being hit by a fairly massive investigation. But I'd say their biggest concern is their drinking water.
Ginny Yingling with the Minnesota Department of Health says it wasn't an easy task. Health officials researched the toxic chemicals and they created drinking water standards for them.
And everybody loves 3M, but everybody also knows that if this issue was caused by 3M, they need to be held accountable and they need to take care of it.
Mayor Myron Bailey says Cottage Grove considered suing 3M. The small city ultimately decided not to legally take on the corporate giant because city officials feared it would bankrupt Cottage Grove.
If you can get the state to be the one that really kind of leads the charge, that's what I'd recommend, and hold your state leaders accountable.
In 2010, it was the state of Minnesota that decided to take on the $120 billion company.
The waste from these chemicals were dumped.
The Attorney General filed a lawsuit against 3M for contaminating their water with chemicals. Hours before the trial was set to begin, 3M settled with the state for $850 million.
The settlement will help solve a problem for Minnesota.
That money will go to pay for the filtration system that will replace Cottage Grove's current carbon system. Minnesota officials say it's not a permanent solution. That non-permanent solution in Minnesota is the system the people are relying on right now in Lawrence County, Alabama. As for finding the money to replace it, Attorney General Steve Marshall admitted to WHNT News 19 last month it is possible for the state to sue 3M under public nuisance law. But the AG hasn't committed to actually filing a lawsuit. Right now, the nonprofit West Morgan East Lawrence Water Authority is stuck suing 3M all on its own. Residents in Lawrence County are begging Alabama officials to get involved, to care, to do anything with the issue.
Why will you not come to Lawrence County? Why will you not investigate to find out the truth? Talk to the people, talk to the communities.
I want them to know and at least come here to see the people that are suffering and just walk in my shoes just for one day.
Alabama's inaction resonates all the way up to Cottage Grove, Minnesota.
The governor and the attorney general of them answer to the state that you live in. So the fact is, if it's important, we need to get it fixed. You need to get it fixed. Hold them accountable. Don't let them just push it under the rug, because it's not going to go away.
Like the winter snow here in Minnesota, the problems in Lawrence County aren't going away anytime soon. State officials up here did what they needed to do to protect their people. Alabama, your people are counting on you. In St. Paul, Chelsea Brensel, WHNT News 19. Sources tell me the West Morgan East Lawrence Water Authority has accepted a settlement offer from 3M, but we don't know how much the chemical manufacturing giant will pay the Water Authority to clean up the drinking water. Why do you think we are where we are today?
You, Brenda Hampton, other people that are like agitators, fighting and pushing and fighting and pushing, never giving up.
Lawrence County drinking water activists haven't had many reasons to smile in recent years, but that's starting to change. People who live here can envision a future where they aren't afraid of what's on tap.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so glad.
The people in Lawrence County are glad that this problem is finna go away.
It's been years since they've seen any relief, felt any relief. The West Morgan East Lawrence Water Authority shocked customers when they issued a do not drink advisory in 2016 because of toxic manufacturing chemicals in the drinking water. Now, the Water Authority tried addressing the problem by suing 3M and installing a temporary carbon filtration system, but they wanted 3M to pay for a permanent water treatment solution.
A nonprofit fighting against a $120 billion company. It's like David fighting against Goliath.
And no matter how many times you've read the Bible, it's hard to imagine David beating Goliath when you picture them facing each other on the battlefield.
I would venture to say most people didn't think this would ever happen.
But last month, after a 3.5-year fight, 3M agreed to pay $35 million to settle the lawsuit. $28.5 million of that check will go to build a new advanced filtration system. The Water Authority says it won't cost customers any additional money.
It takes a big burden off the people here in Lawrence County.
Right now, the West Morgan East Lawrence Water Authority treats its drinking water over here. All water that comes out of the plant currently meets state and federal regulations. But by the end of 2020, a new system, a reverse osmosis, will stand right over here. And WMEL managers say that's when they'll be able to bring customers water of this quality.
The reverse osmosis process is used by all of your major bottled water companies, and they basically start off by buying water from a treatment plant such as ours, and then they run it through a reverse osmosis process, bottle it, and sell it to stores. We'll actually bring that process straight to your house.
WMEL Assistant General Manager Janice Slater says the Water Authority has been researching the reverse osmosis system for years. They've been trying to find a way to build the treatment plant without passing the buck to customers every month like originally planned.
This is such a great deal for us in the community because now we don't have to put that line item on. People don't have to pay that $9 to get the reverse osmosis.
The Environmental Protection Agency says the reverse osmosis is the most effective method for removing the chemicals in question from drinking water. The Water Authority underwent a pilot process with the system in 2018.
Only putting the pure water through, whereas it is taking all of the your viruses, all of these things that are in the water, it takes it to a waste stream.
New federal regulations appear to be on the horizon for several types of perfluorinated chemicals, like the ones found in the WMEL drinking water. The Water Authority says the reverse osmosis system will clean their water so well it won't be a problem.
We've tested it against everything that's in the river now, and it has come back non-detect on everything.
The Water Authority is aiming to break ground on the treatment plant by October of this year. Officials intend to have the reverse osmosis online by December 2020. That's when they say Lawrence County will be drinking some of the cleanest water in the country.
We're going to be able to offer bottled water at people's taps and a sense of security that the water they're drinking is safe.
The people here called it David versus Goliath, and as you well know, David had help. Residents believe they did too.
We don't have resources as individuals to fight them individually. We have to have help. And as a spiritual person, I believe God is that help.
In Lawrence County, Chelsea Brensel, WHNT News 19. In July, the city of Decatur asked manufacturing giant 3M to investigate what it left behind at 3 old landfills. The preliminary findings came back 3 weeks ago. Plenty of manufacturing chemicals remain decades after the landfills were closed.
This is crazy. I mean, there should be public outrage.
Jordan Landers was stunned to learn high levels of chemicals were found on the property where he attended middle school. Landers went to Brookhaven Middle School from 2004 to 2006. He says his fond memories of playing football for the Wildcats are now of concern.
To be falling around and being physically active on contaminated ground, that is a little alarming. And who knows the long-term effects that it might have on all of our health.
The school was home to generations of Decatur City School students from 1971 to 2018.
The land was free.
Ward Webster was Brookhaven Middle School's first principal when it opened. Before the school was built on it, the property served as a landfill from 1944 to 1964. When we spoke to Ward earlier this year, he admitted that building a school on a former landfill did raise some eyebrows back at the time.
Everybody had concerns in the community building a school on a garbage dump.
Federal regulators monitored it in the 1980s, state regulators oversaw it in the 90s, and released it from regular testing in the early 2000s. It's one of 3 old landfills the city of Decatur asked 3M to investigate. The other 2 are these sites, the old Moulton Road landfill that operated until 1973 and the Deer Springs landfill that shut down in 1981. Preliminary screenings released in November found high levels of 3M's perfluorinated chemicals. There are no federal standards for the chemicals in soil, but there is an Environmental Protection Agency advisory of 70 parts per trillion for PFOS and PFOA chemicals in drinking water. Readings of the chemicals from the Brookhaven Aquadome property were 3,770 parts per trillion, more than 50 times the amount of the drinking water advisory. The old Moulton Road landfill test found chemicals at levels of 67,200 parts per trillion, nearly 900 times the advisory. The Deer Springs landfill results from May found chemicals as high as 236,000 parts per trillion, more than 3,000 times the EPA water advisory. WHNT News 19 went to last week's council meeting to talk to elected officials about the findings. Hey Mayor, how's it going? I just wondered if you don't have any comment, or are you working on, are you concerned about the report? Decatur attorney Barney Lovelace is representing the city in 2 chemical lawsuits filed against 3M that also name the city as a defendant. Lovelace says the city and county are in court mediation and unable to comment as the process is confidential. But it's not clear how the closed landfills are involved in litigation. At the end of last Tuesday's council meeting, City Attorney Herman Marks advised Decatur City Council President Paige Bibby to not talk to WHNT News 19 about the landfill reports, noting the matter was part of litigation. Bibby told us she is concerned and wants immediate continued testing. Bibby says that she wants the problem fixed and not a Band-Aid solution. Lawsuit records reviewed by WHNT News 19 don't appear to include any references to the 3 old dump sites now being investigated. And attorney Carl Cole, who is representing the Decatur City School Board, told us Tuesday, currently there is no litigation involving Brookhaven or any of the other properties tested in Decatur other than the current Decatur Morgan landfill.
Mother Nature is not going to take care of these chemicals.
Tennessee Riverkeeper founder David Whiteside filed one of those lawsuits against 3M and the city of Decatur regarding contamination in the Tennessee River. Whiteside says there are several concerns with PFAS chemicals.
They're suspected carcinogens. They're also called forever chemicals, meaning that once they are released into the soil or the water, they aren't going away. They will not biodegrade.
A Decatur native, Jordan, says he understands the relationship between 3M and the city. 3M has long been a major local employer. The former student wants those in power to remember who they serve.
Thousands and thousands of kids came through these halls and played on those playgrounds.
And they're still making their mark.
I think it produced some of the most intelligent, successful young ladies and young men that's out there today.
In Decatur, Chelsea Brensel, WHNT News 19.